Hello and welcome. My aim today is to actually build from scratch a map that looks something like this. The idea is to give people an understanding of the basics of how QGIS constructs maps and to give a fast track idea of how to do that. Now obviously it rests upon a whole bunch of data and a whole bunch of information that you need to collect together before you can actually build the map. I'm not going to do that as part of the talk today. I'll leave that for later on. This is purely to do the very fast track, how do we get a map up and running on QGIS, and to learn some of the journey of using the software. So let's kick off. First thing I want to show you is how I set up a directory to hold the data in preparation for making the maps. If you look up here, you can see I've made a subdirectory called Utah Video. Now, just for your knowledge, the data we're actually using is for Utah State, United States, so that's why I've called it Utah. And then within that directory, I then make a sequence of directories down here that hold each of the sets of data that I'm going to use. Now the logic behind doing it in that way is that if I want to reuse this data for another project, I can just take that entire subdirectory and move it or copy it into my next project. So by compartmentalizing the data like this, I can easily find bits of data for people to use. And just to give you an idea of what that really means, if I go back to my master directory called my GIS, you can see all the different projects we've been working on in mapping in our GIS systems. And if I go into one, let's just pick one, here we go, you can see the same principle again here. For example, this has got this little directory called towns, and I know that that is all the towns of Australia with their little labels on them. Now often I'd want to reuse that in different projects, so I could just take a copy of that directory and move it into another project. So by keeping all of your data in subdirectories like this, it keeps you well organized. Now at first you just want to make a map, so often you just toss files in one folder and you end up in a real mess. So I really push for just setting up a little data structure like this to hold your folders in. Okay, so to kick off, I've actually opened QGIS already and it tells you the version number. Just as a quick tip, make sure you keep updating the versions because there's quite significant work goes on between versions, and they really are advancing this software effectively and efficiently. When you open it, you'll see something that looks like this. Maybe the buttons will be looking slightly different. This is just the version that I have, and you might even have some extra sub boxes on the page. But really the core to what you need is to the left here you need the box called layers, and then you have this open space where the maps will slowly build. I will probably not use too many of the icons across the top, except for the sets that you can see here. And if I was you, I'd stop now, stop the video, have a look at those and set your own up to look sort of similar to what I've got here, because they are the basic set that you use. In fact, what I'll do is if I right click on the menu like this, you can now have a look at which of the sets of icons that I have showing, and you can sort of copy mine if you would like to. I think that's the most basic subset that you can use. So please take a minute and copy that set. Alright, so let's get going and let's start loading up our layers. What you'll see is the layers will appear here. So to add a layer, and for the analogy what I describe, each layer is like a slice of bread, and you're rebuilding the loaf of bread. You're laying slice after slice in a pile. In fact, I laugh with my grad students that we're making a sandwich here. That's what we're doing. So let's add our first layer. So we use add layer. Fundamentally, all layers that you add are really of the vector type for beginners, and so we always add a vector layer. And the little dialog box looks like this, and then all we do is we go and find our vector layer, and I'm just going to move to our directory. Remember I said it's called Utah Video. Go down here, Utah Video. Here they are here. And I'm going to pick the first one up. So what I do is I lay down the biggest extent of the map first. So in this case, because I'm working with Utah State, I want to lay all the counties down as the first slice of bread in my sandwich. So all I do is click on counties. Here they are here. Now it shows a whole lot of files. The good news is all you need to do is pick the SHP file. SHP is short for Shapefile, and that is the sort of indexing file that attaches itself to all the other 6 or 7 files in this folder. So when I talk about shapefiles, I'm actually talking about a cluster of about 6 or 7 files, but when you load it into QGIS, all you need to worry about is the SHP file. So if I click on that, say open, and then here I can read it to make sure it's the right one. Counties, that's correct. Go open, and there you go. You can now see the counties have been automatically laid down in our project file. Now, before we go any further, I always, at each step, save the project. So we go project. Because this is a new project, I've got to give it a name. Save as. We'll just get it in the right directory called Utah Video. Here we go. Utah Video, there it is. Now I give it a name like video underscore version 1.1. There we go, and you can just check at the top that it saved it. Here it is here, video version 1.1. Very good. We now have counties. That's fantastic. Not a big fan of lime green, but we'll come to that problem in a minute. So let's now go through the process of adding another layer. So what we do is we go add a vector layer. Same again, we just go to browse. Now we don't want counties now. What do we want to add? Let's go backwards one more directory. Here we go. What we'll now add is the road network. Here we go, road network. Now again, the same story again. It's just the shape files that we're going to add. Here what I've also done, just before anyone from Utah looks at this, I've only picked out roads of categories 1 to 7, which are sort of the major roads, so we won't see all the minor roads, but we will see that here. So here we go. Shapefile, we say open, open, and there we go. We can see them, just sort of see them in pale yellow here. If you want to magnify an area, you just click on the magnify button, extend it up. There we go, we can sort of see the yellow there. It's not so good, so what I might do is actually show you how you change colours and things. So let's just do that. For the roadways, let's change their colour first. What you do is you right click and up comes the menu. Go down to properties. Check out the properties dialog box, and one of them is called style, and we can set the colour here. You can have the preset colours. We'll go for something like a dark blue, I reckon. There we go. Oops, I'm sorry. You've got to click on the line. It's a simple line, so you click on the line, then you pick the colour dark blue. Here we go. You can change all sorts of things. You can change the type of line. You can have dots instead of solid lines. You can change the width of lines. Everything you particularly feel like here. We're just going to go with the standard. So we'll go OK. And there we go. You can now see the roads. Another great button here is this little one here, which will zoom the map out to the full extent of the map. So we press that, and there we go. We can see Utah State there. So that's how you add layers. And we'll add one more layer. Let's keep going. Add layer, add vector layer, browse to the layer, Utah Video. What shall we add next? We might add the tracks data. Now, just as an aside, a tract is actually the census data areas. So we'll add that census data area. And in fact, this will show you another little interesting problem that you can fix with QGIS. Here again, the same principle. We've got the data, but the key file we look for always is the SHP file, the shapefile, and we click that to open it. Check the name, open, check the name, open, and there we go. Now you can immediately see what's happened here. The tract data has overlaid. If you look at this list, you have to imagine that you're looking down through these slices of bread. And obviously a slice of bread's opaque, so you can't see through the top slice of bread. One trick you can do is if you hold down on the layer, so I've left clicked and held, you can slide the layer down the list. So let's slide it below the roads, like that. So you now see you're looking through the roads down at the tracks. If I slide that down one more layer, we go below the counties now. See, we've got this list, roads, counties, tracks. You now can't see the light blue of the tracks because the counties are overlaying it. So if you want to make a slice transparent, or you want to be able to see through it, there's many ways to do that. Let's look at a couple. So again, all we do is let's imagine we're going to make the counties somewhat transparent. Let's right click on it, go down to properties, simple fill, so we click on the simple fill, and you can see there's two parts to it. There's the edges and there's the fill. So for example, if you wanted to, you could turn off the fill. Beg your pardon, turn off the fill is here. Instead of having solid fill, let's have no fill. So you can see as the example here, we've just got the black edges now. But let's not have black edges. Let's have bright red edges. And let's have a look what that looks like. You can see here, we're going to have bright red edges around empty counties. So okay, and there you go. You can now see what you have. You have the county lines in red. Let's just go up in magnification somewhere where there's a little intersect of the three here. Probably this little area here. So I'll just click on the plus sign. You can, if you hold the left button down and slide, you can make a little square and it will magnify to that square. And there you go there. Let's have a look at what we can see here. You can see the roadways in blue. They're the roadways there. You can see the tracks are in the light blue fill with the black edges. There's a tract edge there. And then you can see the counties having the red edges. Now you probably notice that the red edges are overlaying the black edges. And we can fix that in a minute. I'll show you how we fix that. In fact, I'll do it right now. What you do is if you make the edges of the tracks slightly thicker, they will show either side of the red lines. So let's just right click again, go to properties, style, simple fill, here we go, and we want the edges, the borders, here the border width, we want that to be slightly thicker. So we go up. That's a fair bit thicker, that. Did you notice it went up by a huge amount? See, that went from 0.26 to 0.46, which is a fair bit. We don't want it that wide. We'll just go down to 0.40, hey? There we go. I just used the keyboard to change the numbers. We say OK. And now, can you see, you can see a little bit of black underneath that edge there. I'll just go up in magnification again, same again, hold my finger down on the button, go along the edge to give me a little square, go up in magnification. See the edge of black? It's not big enough, is it? Let's make it bigger. Right click, properties, simple fill, the edge effect, we'll go up a bit more, say OK. You can start to see it now under the red. Why don't we make the red a little bit narrower? So we right click, properties, simple fill, the border is a little big, we'll make it a wee bit smaller. There we go, that's a bit too small. You can spend hours doing this. Oops-a daisy. There we go. There you go. You can now see it. Let's just go back to the full extent of the map here. You can see what you can see now. So that's how you can change the border style on things. I'm just going to return them to their original size for simplicity, and then we'll keep going from there. So let me just go through and quickly put them back to their normal. I think it's 0.26. After a while you will remember these numbers. There we go. So I've just popped them back to normal. Alright, let's continue on now. We'll add another layer. In fact, this time we're going to add the school districts. So we'll just go in here, back to the video, school districts, here they are, school districts. So we look for the shapefile, here it is here, add that, open, and there's our school districts. We have the same problem again, it's overlaying, so I'm just going to change its properties as well, just to stop it looking like that. Simple fill. We'll change the border colour to something we'll be able to see nicely. We'll go pink, shall we? Pink. And we'll go without any fill. Oops, daisy. Without any fill. There we go. We'll just, I'll just show you another little thing you can do. When your map starts to get really complicated and messy, if you click these little crosses here and turn things off, you can hide layers. So there you go. For example, I've hidden all the layers except the school districts, so you can see that now. Cool. The other thing you can do is if you right click, one of the really important things on the right click menu is the Open Attribute Table. And the attribute table opens up this, that shows you the actual data that underpins that. So for example here we are looking at each school district with their total roll, and we're actually looking at the percent that suffer poverty, but I'll show you how that was added to this file in a minute. So this is what you can see in the attribute table, and you can do all sorts of interesting things. We'll come back to that in a minute. But this school districts data actually didn't have how many kids were suffering poverty. So I want to show you now how we attach a set of data to a bunch of geography. So you can see this here and go, oh well, this is just sort of some geographical outlines. It's got no underpinning data to it. So let's add data. Now the first step in this is quite counterintuitive, so please do not worry. And don't worry about why it looks so silly. If you add a layer and you go same vector layer, you go add a layer, and you browse, you can see here a CSV file. A CSV file is a pure data file, and in a minute I'll show you what this data file holds. But if you can work in Excel and then save files as CSVs. CSV files can be imported into QGIS as a bunch of data, and this is the method you do it. So you can click on it and open it just as you would a normal vector file. Here we go. And there it is there. Can you see it there? It doesn't appear as anything on the map, and you notice it doesn't have a little cross next to it because it has no map information. But you now have the data. If you right click on it and you go Open Attributes, you'll actually see the data. Here it is here. So this has the same school district names, but then it has all the information that you would want to know about that school district, because we got this data from a separate part of the data system in the census of the United States, and it's purely data. It has no geography. So what we're now going to try and do is attach this data to this geography, because that makes sense. We've got the geography and we have the data, but they're in separate files. So the way you do that is you right click, Properties, and it's called Join. Down here, see this item here? You go Join. And this is where you connect up a geography file to a data file. Remember, the geography file is an SHP file and the data file is a CSV file. So we're going to add a join. We're going to connect things up. So we are going to join the file we said that had the information in it, but no geography, and the code we're going to use to do the join is called the name field. In fact, we'll just go back and I'll show you what that looks like, and we're going to join that to the name field in our geography file. So you can see we have to pick two fields that are identical, so the software can go, okay, that geography with that name links to this geography data set. Now I'll just go back for a minute and just show you that so you can see the evidence. If I right click on the geography file first and open the attributes, see the name here? Look at it. The name is all nicely written out here. So there's the name there. And if we look in the data folder, the data file, you can see over here, here is the name as well. So you can see what we're going to do. We're going to join the name from this folder, this file, to the name in this file. It's going to be the linker. So let's go back there again. So we right click on here, properties, join. When we add a join, we're going to join the geography file, which we're in, with the population file. We're going to use the name and we're going to match it to the name, and here we go. Click this, and if it gets a little tick here, we have it joined up. How do we know it's joined up? We close this dialog box, we open where we were doing the join to, so we right click, open attribute table, and now if you slide across here, look at these names up here. You see this here? See this? Look at this. This is the data file. So whereas over here is the geography file. So you can now see that it's linked item by item down the list all nicely. And the good news here is we've got a perfect match. See that? There's no records that don't have any data next to them. So what does this mean? Let's just understand what a join really means. All a join means is that we now have data attached to geography, which is a really important thing. So now we have some data joined to some geography and we have a sequence of layers here. There is one more way in which we add layers to data, and that is that in some cases you use some software to produce a list of locations as purely an Excel spreadsheet. And then you want those locations to be mapped onto your map. Now clearly locations mean you have a longitude and latitude. So in the spreadsheet you have a longitude and latitude. So let's see how we add a data set that has in it longitude and latitude, but it's not a shapefile. It's purely another set of CSV file. So let's have a look at those. Let's see how you add those to it, to your map. So you add a delimited text layer. This last one on the list here. Click Add, and the dialog box looks like this. So the first thing you must do is pick the file, where the file is, and let's just find that file. Go back here. We're doing Utah video, and in fact I have two sets here. Well, the corrected set here first. This is in fact the longitude and latitude of every dental practice in Utah. So you can see here, if I stop here, you can see that it's a CSV file. And in a minute I'll go to Excel and I'll show you what that CSV file looks like. But for now, just understand that there is two fields in there, one called longitude and one called latitude. Plus some other data, of course, because you want to know about the practice, you want the name of the dentist and everything like that. So you double click on that, and here it is here. Now the good news is, if you have it right, and if you've spelt longitude and latitude correctly, it will automatically populate the dialog box for you. The first line of this file always has the names of what the fields below it are, and then you have one field that is called longitude, here they are here, and one field that's called latitude. If you type them out in full and get them right, it will automatically pull them out to work out that they are the coordinates that you want to use to apply this as a layer to your map. So here we go. We now have it. Usually, if it all works well, you can just say OK. You don't need to fiddle with any of the settings. So you say OK. Now, what pops up is a dialog box that looks like this. And this dialog box is about the coordinate reference system. I'm not going to go into detail about what that means, but basically that means how the mathematics of how the longitude and latitude were calculated is dependent upon what way you flatten a sphere onto a flat map. And there's all sorts of ways that that's done. Just out of interest, and I know Google and most of the systems use WGS 84. So for example, I know that these longitude and latitudes were calculated by Google, and therefore I need to use the coordinate reference system WGS 84. So I just click on that, or I click on it, then I say OK, and there we go. You can now see these green dots are all the dental practices have been applied to this map. Now that still sits there. Oh, we better save, please, as you go along. Make sure you hit the save button so you don't lose anything. And now you can see, we'll go up in magnification here. There we go. Actually, we might even turn the roads on. We can have a look to see if they're on roadways. That would make sense. You'd expect practices to be along main roads. We'll just go up in magnification again. Here we go. Look at them there. Beautiful. Look at this. What fun. They're all surrounding one intersection here. So this is the mechanism. You can add map data that you produced as longitude and latitude in another system. Just to have a look at what the data looks like, if we right click on it, we go open attributes, you can see here is that data that we dragged in, and at the far end here you can see longitude and latitude sitting here. Very good. Now what I always do when you have longitude and latitude, when you've imported it, is you then want to save it back as a shapefile. You don't want to keep having to import it every time as a CSV file. So how you save this is you go right click, save as, and up will pop another dialog box. Just get it on the screen here. There we go. Now at the moment it says CSV because that's what it was, but you don't want to save it as that. You want to save it as a shapefile. Just for interest, Esri is actually the brand name that invented shapefiles. So you want to save it as a shapefile. So you give that file a name, and I always put it back in where I got it from. I'm going to put it in dentists. In fact, I'm going to call it dent2. I had a little experiment beforehand, that's why you can see dent1. I just wanted to make sure it worked. So there it is there. Now, the trick here is you want to set the coordinate reference system. At the moment the coordinate reference system is WGS 84 because that's what you told it was going to be. But if you have different coordinate systems for different layers, your problem is you can't then have all the layers reference each other, which is at the end of the day what you want to do. If you imagine the loaf of bread, you want to ask questions that go through from slice to slice. For example, you might want to ask, how many dental practices are there in each school district? Now that would be using the dental practice layer and questioning against the school district layer. So what you want is the coordinate reference system to be the same for all layers. So how do you fix that? you click this change button here, and then you can use this. You can select different coordinate systems to which the software will automatically take the coordinate system WGS 84 in this case and convert it to NAD 83. Now, why have I clicked on NAD 83? Well, I've already cheated and had a look, and I know that all the census data for the United States in the Utah region is done at NAD 83 as its reference coordinate system. So I'm going to convert the dentists into the same as the census data, so I can then do analysis of the dentists to the other layers. Here we go. So I just click OK once I've selected it, like that. You can see it's now changed it. It will save it as the shapefile. Now notice here, I've got this here, add saved to file to map. So what it will do is when I click OK, it will do the conversions, save it as a shapefile so I have it for later, but it will also pop it immediately on the top of this map. So if we click OK, you watch what happens. It has a bit of a think. And you can see now, he says, where's it popped up? Huh, it didn't pop up. Now let's have another go and work out why it didn't pop up. We'll have another go at it and have a look again. Save as Esri shapefile, that's correct. We'll save it as Dent2, we'll just overwrite it. I always just do this to check what's going on. We got the layer that we want to change. What did we want to change it to? We wanted to change it to this one. Say OK, check that it's going to add it to the map, say OK. Leave it to think. It does take a while to do this normally, so sometimes errors happen. Ah, here we go. This time an error's popped up. Okay, so you just read the error and work out what's gone wrong. Failed to transform ID 427, writing has stopped. Okay, so this is where it's tried to do a transformation, and one of the items of the data, ID 427, has been unable to be transformed and it's failed. So what we do in that case is we just have a look first of all. So we open the attributes. What was it again? 427, wasn't it? ID 427, I think. So we'll just look down this list here. Go down to 427. 427, there it is there. We look across at the transformation. What's happened here? Oh yes, look at this. This has clearly been an interesting case where we have a pair here that are quite substantially different from the other longs and lats. You look down, oh no, they're not that bad, are they? And what's the accuracy? Let me just have a look here. Okay, we've had some issue with that dentist that has stopped us saving that. Now, what I would normally do, we're not going to do it now, but what I would normally do is actually go back to the Excel spreadsheet, and I'll show you that in a minute just to show you how you make CSV files, and we'd work through that as a problem. But we'll get to that later. So I'll just leave this alone for now, but I've shown you now how you save back as a shapefile with a transformation of the coordinate reference system, which is a really important thing to do. Now, I didn't show you one little tip that I always show everyone. How do you check what the coordinate reference system for different data sets is? All you do is you click on it, you right click, you look for properties, you click on general here, and the coordinate reference system is written here for you. You can see it here. So you can see why I'm using this NAD 83, because that's the American, for Utah, that's what is used for the census data. So you can see it on any of these. If I go to the Dent one, we'll have a look. Properties, general, yes, you see that's the WGS 84 Google used reference system. So if we started to try and ask questions from one reference system, from one layer to the next, it would fail in this case because we have different reference systems for different layers. So we would need to we would need to continue down the correction of this layer. But we're not going to do that for now, so we'll just press on. Cool. So this is the beginnings of a map now. You can start to see things. Sorts of things that you might like to do. Often people would like to see the names on the map, and you can do that quite easily. If you open the properties window again, you can see labels here, so you can click on labels, show me a layer, label. You can pick what field you want to show. There should be a name somewhere. Name, there it is. So a name, and it gives you all that, you can do it in all colours and whatever you like to do. Add a bit of shadow. We'll do a bit of drop shadow on it. There we go. And we'll just say OK. And now you can see the names of the school districts there have popped up already for us. We'll just go back and extent. I'll show you the negative button this time. If you click on the negative, click once, it'll go down a preset amount. Click again, we'll keep going down. We can keep going down. There we go. Remember the extent button. The extent button will just give you the full extent. You see, this is the problem. The full extent will actually show you the full extent, and what we've come across here is there must be a dentist that has some odd longitude and latitude, and it's way out here. So that's why we have this problem here. So I'm just going to do the plus and just pick up this area here like that, so we can have a good look at it again. Oh, we have one dentist outside as well that we need to clean up too. So there you go, you can now start to see it. Let's underplay that with the tracks, so we can now see the tracks as well. Those labels are pretty big, aren't they? We might fix that up in a minute. Here we go. You can see more there. I'm not so keen on the blue. We might change that a little bit. So I'll just right click on that, properties, style, simple fill. We'll change the blue to something more pleasant, like just a sort of pale grey. Okay, there we go. Go down in mag a bit more. There we go. Perfect. Now there's one other thing I want to show you. Obviously this is the sort of map you would use to do calculations and things with, and you can use all this. You can turn off the roads and produce a map, turn them on. But sometimes you would like to have underpinning this the something of the geography of the area. And if you use the web tools here, there is the open layers. And this is where you can add, say, an open street. You can add the actual streets from OpenStreet, or we're just going to add the landscape. And if you just click that, what will happen, it'll take a second or two. See down here it's thinking about it, collecting the data from the internet. You need a live internet connection to use this. And you can now see the map is sort of half been applied. It takes a bit of time and it's not so good. But the first thing to notice is it's at the wrong edge of the scale. You need to take that layer and slide it all the way to the bottom here, so you can see all the overlaying. Just to fix up so it gets the other panels here, all you do is, if you do a little bit of magnification and things, it will recalculate and get that for you. There you go. So that looks really good, but there's one other thing that you often like to do. You often like to shade areas so you can see different things. Now I'm going to turn a few of these things off so we don't have them here. We can see a little more. For example, let's imagine you wanted to shade each school district with the percent of poor children, or children in poverty, living in it. So if you right click on the school districts, you can go down to properties, and if you look under the style option, there is these various ways that you can present your data that's within that file. So we will go to graduated. You need a numerical field to allow it to work, and we have the proportion poor, proportion of children in poverty, like that. And then you can pick a color scheme. we're going to go from red to green, because obviously we want from poor to wealthy, red through green. There we go. And you tell it how precise you want it, and then you can hit classify. Oh dear, it's forgotten to do the colouring in. That's okay. Actually, we'll just hit OK and have a look at what it's done. It will have done nothing, I suspect, because we haven't got a fill on at the moment. Actually, let's just do it. Let's just give it a fill. Simple fill. Turn on the fill. Solid fill. OK. And there you go. You can see the classification now is happened by the fill. I actually like to do it a little bit higher than that usually, like that, so it gives you a good ramp of colour. Now remember, we've got the problem here that 5% of kids' poverty we want at the green end and 26 we want at the red end, so we want it the other way up, which is a problem. So all you do is just click on the invert like that, and you can see it's now put the green at the right end of the scale. So we just go OK, and there we go. Notice here it's forgotten to print oh no, that's outside the state. In fact, that's raised the other issue. Let's just go back in magnification a bit so you can see what it's done here. See there, it's now shaded each school district with the relative number of poor children in each district. But have you noticed it's covered up our underlying map? And you know, I like to be able to see the underlying map even though we want the shading as well. I want both. So what we do is we right click, back to properties, and in here there's transparency. See this, we're on style again. There's this thing called transparency, and if you crank up the transparency, usually I think about 50% is about right. It's about the first starter point. Say OK. Can you now start to see that underneath the map you can actually see this line here runs underneath it? So you can now see through this layer. Basically what it's done is it's this school districts layer, it's provided to be 50% transparent. So you can now sort of see through it. I don't think 50% is enough in this case, so I'm just going to crank that up a little bit more. Let's just crank that up to say 60%, like that. There we go, you can see a lot more now. For the sake of this, I'm going to turn off these names because they're just driving me insane reading all those names. So we'll just go back to properties again. Remember that's under labels. You can just click the labels off like that. Cool, and there we go. Now you can see more of it. I'm going to turn the roads on as well because the roads are nice to see. There are the roads, but I don't like the blue anymore because it's sort of jumping out at you. So we'll change that colour, properties, we'll just style, we'll just tone down the blue a bit. If you don't like the preset colours, we'll just go down here and we can go choose a colour, and you get this colour wheel as you'd expect to get, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to soften that blue by just taking it around here a little, and then I might even make it a little bit more transparent, paler blue. You can see, if you watch down here you can see it. And we'll just go like that for now. Actually, if you want to just, this is a neat little trick you can do. If you just want to see but you want to keep your dialog box open, you hit apply and see it'll pop it on the map. You can have a look. See, that's still a bit bright. So what I'll do is I'll just put a bit of transparency on it. Let's call it 25%. Apply. There you go, it's starting to disappear. We might even go a bit more, shall we? Let's go 50. See how that looks. Apply. There you go. So the roads now are blended into the background a little bit better. There we go. Remember to save on the way. Here we go. Let's pop the dentists on, see what they look like. Wow, they're a bit big and green and blobby, so I'm going to change them as well. Properties. One thing I do with these is I'll often ever so slightly shrink them, and I'll turn the border off because the border looks a bit strange. You can see here it shows you what they'll look like at the end of the day. We'll apply that, just have a look. See, they look a bit strange. We'll go for a different fill colour. I think we'll go pink. There are the dental practices. Go maybe a wee bit smaller. apply. Yep, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? Okay. My problem is I don't like the roads on top of the practices, so I'll move the practices up to the top. Oops daisy, I'll try that again, up to the top. Whoop, move the roads down one. There we go. So the practices now sit on top of the roads. Let's just have a look at a good magnification here. Takes a bit of time to calculate now because you're getting a bit complicated. Yeah, now you can see that. There we go. We're looking quite good. We've got roads, and we've got the practices, and we've got the underpinning wealth and poverty. If you use the hand here, you can just move the map down and it will redraw the map in a different location for you. There you go. You can start to see more of the detail come in. What we have lost is the tracks data, and I'm going to just slide the tracks data above this again. Bit of a problem because the track data has filled space, so we'll just go to properties and I'll get the fill off. Turn off the fill like that. Apply that. You can see the tracks now beautifully as well. Cool. Save the project. There we go. So now you look to me like you've got a nice map here. You've got roads, you've got the dental practices, you've got everything on the map. Let's say you now want this to present as a slide, and you want this little area here presented as a slide. As you can see, all you do is you go Project, Save Image. Now this will save the picture of that map. Now just to remind you, please remember there's all these different formats. If you're doing it for a journal, you'd save it as TIFF format because that's very high resolution. But if you're just saving it on your desktop just to have a quick look or send to a friend, you can just save it as a JPEG, and we'll just call it My First Map. There we go. Save. And the good news is it's appeared over here on my desktop. I won't show you, but I'll just open it up so you can see it. There it is there. So it just saves it as a picture that you can then pass around. Cool. A few other little things you might like to add. Often people like to have a scale bar or things like that. He says, I've forgotten where they are. Layer, that's right, I think they're in layer here. You can add compasses and scale bars and things like that when I've forgotten where it is in the menu. That's terrible. Anyway, do you know what I do when I get stuck like this? I always have my browser open, and I would just type into my browser QGIS add scale bar, or QGIS add I can't believe I can't remember where it is. QGIS add compass and things like that. They are here somewhere. Nope, I can't remember. Anyway, so you can actually add a little scale bar. You can add a compass to show where north is. Obviously, using these sorts of data, these maps are north is always to the top, but you can add those if you want to. So that's the end of my little journey of how to use QGIS, the beginner's guide, and we'll do a more detailed selection of interesting things you can do with it, like measurement and things, in a wee while.